Hi there. One of the big debates in podcasting at the moment is whether or not podcasters who record on audio should also do video, and podcasters who do both wondering which is the more fruitful or the more lucrative. So let's take a look at the relative advantages and disadvantages of YouTube versus audio, and then come up with a plan that might be useful for some of us. There are 2 million podcasts worldwide. That's as of 2021. That's a lot of podcasts and a lot of competition, but way less than the competition on YouTube, where there are 37 million separate channels and, of course, gazillions of watchers. So worried about getting lost in the mayhem? Well, that might be appropriate on both sides, but certainly in podcasting, you've got a better chance of being heard. Perhaps the best thing for the advantages of audio is that it's multitask friendly. What I mean by that is, you can make the tea, wash the dishes, drive the car, whatever you need to do through your daily jobs, work on the computer while you are listening to an audio podcast. So it's multitask friendly. Whereas YouTube, of course, requires attention, especially if you have a lot of interesting pictures. Maybe people can use your podcast if it's just a couple of people talking with talking head faces, then maybe they can just leave it and go away from it, but that's not ideal. So really YouTube requires more attention because it's rather like watching TV, right? It's very difficult to do something else while you're watching TV. Obviously, you don't get the facial recognition with audio podcasting. They're not going to see your face except on your social marketing and your other marketing tools. But YouTube, of course, gives you great face recognition exposure because your face will be up there all the time, or the face of your host. The other big thing is length. Audio podcasts sustain the audience for more than 30 minutes in most cases, often as long as an hour. Some podcasts are even longer than that. But it's interesting because you can get into the issues in more depth that way. You can have a meaningful conversation, and people can decide when they download, they can decide to allocate whatever time they think is appropriate to listen to the podcast. So when we're building audience, we're thinking, oh, I can have, my podcast is here on Tuesday, so let me block off 30 minutes so I can listen to it before I go to bed or when I have my coffee or whatever, right? Whereas on YouTube, the ideal length of most shows is between 5 and 10 minutes. Now, this is because people use YouTube differently. They use it for quick hits. It's not always the case, of course. There are YouTube shows of an hour length that sustain that audience, but typically audience start to wane much earlier on YouTube than they do on audio podcasts. So the shorter desired length on YouTube means obviously you get less information to the audience, even though the visuals might make it more entertaining. Audio, as we know, is cheaper to do. So it's a relatively low cost production for an audio podcast when compared with YouTube, which of course depends on, how many cameras you want to use, what the lighting setup is, etc. Video editing is a lot more expensive than simple audio editing. So I came up with an idea that I hope will be helpful to some people who are going backwards and forwards on this issue. And it's basically to try to do both, but in a limited way. And this is particularly helpful for people who might be working off a low budget, who do audio, but really don't have the expense to do high quality video. So, and the other thing is, if you're working on Zoom or a program similar to Zoom, where you're doing remote interviews, this is particularly helpful because the recording process in those is especially simple. And they deliver both an MP4 for video and an MP3 file for audio. So record your podcast in both audio and video, and then have your editor go and do the audio podcast as she or he normally would and prepare it, but make notes of the time codes from the original video recording, the MP4. And once you've done that, you can pick out, from having listened to the audio version, you can pick out the best clips. So choose 3 or 4 short video clips from the conversation and use those to upload to YouTube. That's a relatively simple and cost-effective way of doing it without editing the entire audio, the entire interview. Upload the clips to YouTube with links to the podcast. People who like the YouTube 5-minute, 3-minute, 1-minute version of the clips, whatever it might be, may then download the full podcast. So both boats rise. And you can also use those little clips, of course, in all your social media promotion, videograms, audiograms, etc., whatever it is you choose to do. So that's the most cost-effective way that I can think of to be multimedia with a podcast without going to the huge expense of editing a long-form video production. Well, that's it for now. If you like these tips, email me your comments. If you disagree with me, email me your comments. But if you like them, please like on YouTube or subscribe. And I will see you next time.